I'm Dr. Horace Huntley. We're presently at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Today is January 6, 1997. Mr. Poe, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come and talk with me today about growing up in Birmingham.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, sir. And you were born in Birmingham, right?
Born and raised in Birmingham.
And how many children did your parents have?
Well, that was two sets.
Sure.
My father was a father of three.
Okay.
Then he passed in 36, I believe it was.
And how old were you when he passed?
I was 6 years old and I had two sisters under me.
Okay, so you were the oldest of that?
I'm the oldest of the bunch.
Oh, okay, all right. Now, your mother and your father, were they born here in Birmingham?
My mother was born in Dallas County in Selma, Alabama.
Okay.
And my father was born up below Jasper.
Okay, so he was from north of Birmingham?
Yeah.
Okay, and then they met here in Birmingham?
They met here in Birmingham.
Okay. What kind of work did your father do?
My father worked at U.S. Pipe.
Okay.
I didn't know Birmingham.
And did your mother work outside of the home?
No, she didn't. Over a period of years after we started growing up, there was a need, and she sold Avon Cosmetics for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Then her health fell on her. That was after my father died.
I see.
And then she got married again.
Okay.
And there were two other children born in the family, a boy and a girl. Then that lasted for a while, and their stepdaddy went to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And he wanted my mother to pack up and bring us to Cleveland. But if he didn't support the family here in Birmingham, we felt that he wasn't going to do it in Cleveland, so she stayed in Birmingham.
Stayed in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
So at what age then did he leave? Did her husband leave? Going to Cleveland? How old were you? Were you in high school at the time?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I come out of high school after he left, and my mother was in bad health.
I see.
And I come out of high school and I went to work. I didn't know Birmingham, what was known then as Alabama Packing Company.
Yeah.
Well, they've been out of business now for years. They was out on 16th Street in Civico.
What community were you raised up in?
I was raised up in what is known as Vulcan City.
Where is Birmingham City?
It was really up by Hudson School.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to Hudson?
I went to Hudson Elementary.
Okay. What do you remember your first grade teacher at Hudson School?
Well,
what do you remember about Hudson School? What reminds you of Hudson? Anything that?
well, yeah. Hudson School had a lot of impression on my life because the principal, Mr. T.J. Sells, lived the next street behind where we were living. And several of the teachers lived in Collegeville. And of course, we had teachers who lived out in Hooker City. That's adjoining community to Collegeville out in North Birmingham. So, now exactly my first day, it may have been Miss Calloway. I don't know who it was.
Yeah. Well, what do you remember about the school at that time? Is there anything that sort of stand out? Were you excited about going to school? Was school something that you could have done without at that time? Or what were your impressions of school?
Well, I was kind of young, but I saw the need for school because I grew up in a home where I somewhat, and I was told that I was a man in the house. And back then,
even from a young boy.
Yeah, even from a young boy. Because you take for my mother married the second time, when she would leave home, I would have to take care of my two sisters, me and the dog. And it was in the summertime, we stayed in the backyard. And I was trained not to let any more children in the yard. There was only one other boy living in the community, Hubbard D. Hubbard D could come over. With the exception of my cousins. My mother had two sisters and they had children. And if they come, well, we had company. But if they didn't come, we was there by ourselves.
Yeah. And that was your responsibility to see that.
Oh yeah.
No one else came there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna let anybody in the yard, neither was that dog gonna let anybody in the yard.
Then you left Hudson and went to Parker, right?
Yeah.
What do you remember about Parker High School? Parker was one of the largest high schools in the country.
Well, as far as I know, at that time, Parker was the only high school in the country. I remember activities. I remember once that I thought I wanted to play football. And it was a little too much body contact for me, I guess. But
so you gave it up? You didn't play?
No, I didn't play. In fact, I wasn't in Parker about a year. After the 9th grade, I come out of school. And I took on a man-sized job. Yeah.
Well, tell me about your community. What it was like being raised in the community that you were raised in.
In those days, the community was ideal for a one-parent family. Not saying that, not endorsing the idea of one-parent family, but you had neighbors that was concerned.
Right.
And before children could get in too big a problem, too big a mystery, one of the neighbors was going to see it if the parent didn't see it. And you could believe that one of the neighbors seen it would be like mom or dad said it. And we had good neighbors, and naturally they would look out for us. And I think Collegeville was an ideal place at that time.
Because of the relationship that neighbors had with
that
each other.
neighborhood had with each other, and the relationship that the neighbors had with the children.
So in fact, the whole community did raise the children.
That's right. You had a village there.
That's right. Tell me, Birmingham in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, of course, when you say the word Birmingham, immediately comes to mind about racism and police brutality.
It really was. I remember the red cars.
What do you mean the red cars?
Police were driving red cars out in North Birmingham. And they was quick to chase you out of the street, off the block. And you didn't have to be into nothing. But then several fellows would be together. It was entertaining to them if they would run you home. And of course, in those days, there was quite a bit of fear, in the average black, because you didn't have no protection. The one that you would call to protect you sometimes was your enemy. And whenever you rode the bus, you had to sit behind the bowl. In other words, society then was drawn up on the idea of a black man place and I guess a white man place. And to me, the black man place wasn't too comfortable in life, and I just didn't care for that. But I tried to stay out of trouble, which I did.
Did you ever have any encounters with the police?
I've been blessed. I've been blessed. I never had no problems out of the police. But I like to knock on wood. I never did anything to,
Right.
cause me to have problems out of it. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever know of any incidents where black men were in contradiction with the police, although, like you said, you didn't have to do anything?
Quite a few. I live right off the pike. Now it's known as Shuttlesworth Drive. And potholes were deep enough in the road to knock the front end out from an automobile if you drove fast. And there were several Italian stores. You know how they scattered around in the black community. And one of them was Germans. It was 3 brothers. And they was huge, large fellows. Their names were the Lett brothers. And they had California.
And what?
Cattle.
Cattle, okay.
California.
Mhm.
They'd raise cows and they'd bring them there, slaughter them, bring the meat there and have big sales. In those days, you had live chickens that were sold in the stores and all that kind of stuff. So, the Ku Klux used to perform out on Hudson School ground. And on Friday nights, if Lett closed early, in those days, usually stores would close at 12 o'clock and open the next morning, I suppose, around 5 o'clock. And if Lett closed early, there was old saying the Ku Klux was going to ride. And these cars would come down the pike. And
Now, what did that mean?
I remember several times they would go up on Hudson School ground. And that's where they would perform and burn the cross.
Mm.
Now, there were incidents happen that broke that up.
What's some of those? You say now if Lett closed early, then
Lett closed early, the Ku Klux was going to ride that night.
So did that mean that the Letts were involved in the Ku Klux?
Oh, I suppose so. I suppose so. So there were several incidents. In those days, people used to have house parties. And about a block and a half from us, they'd have a house party every so often. And the music then was pianos in the house. And they would be in there having a good time as we knew it, and that was about all we had to do. Work, have a house party, and go to church. They raided the house.
Ku Klux.
Ku Klux. And that kind of slowed that down. But they had a bad incident up on what is known as Byers Hill, north of College Hill. And I think some bloodshed was up there. And the Ku Klux stopped riding.
They did.
They stopped riding.
As a result of them raiding the house, and then there was some bloodshed.
Yeah,
so
some
they
bloodshed.
stopped doing it.
Yeah, they stopped doing it.
So they had evidently been doing this for some time.
Yeah.
In different locations.
Yeah.
But when they did it at Byers Hill.
Yeah. I think that was a controlling mechanism that they were using there. And something was going on there. See, in those days you had white policy collectors, insurance men. And they would be out in the black community. And they would pick up information that what was going on. And I suppose that's one way of the information was given to them, what was going on in different locations.
Why would they raid a party? Why would the Klan raid a party?
Now that I don't know. I guess it was a way of controlling you. Maybe you go to bed at night, I guess.
Another one of those mechanisms of control.
Yeah.
You said there were several incidents like that.
Yeah.
Did they happen just in that community, or were they happening in other parts of the city?
I'm not sure just how widespread it was, because At that time, I was just living in the area where I was living. You know,
Right.
I wasn't old enough to go where I wanted to go.
Right.
And
Now this was during the time that you were in school? Or?
in school,
Oh, okay.
yeah, during the time
So
that
you're
I
still
was
a child
in
at that
school.
time?
Yeah, I'm still a child at that time.
Okay. And that's the kind of relationship that you see is evolved between the black community and the Klan.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, in the white community, it wasn't a good relationship whatsoever. When my daddy died, my mother went down and applied for some assistance. And she told me they sent a representative check. My daddy was an industrious man. And we had a pretty nice home. Residence. We didn't own the house. And what she was told, you sell some of this nice furniture you got, and then you come back and we probably help you.
Mm. So she was doing too well as
Yeah.
far as they were concerned.
Yeah, my daddy didn't leave us outdoors.
Mm.
It was a decent place to stay.
But did she sell the furniture?
Oh, no. That's when she went to trying to sell Avon Cosmetics.
You said that you went to Parker High School,
Mhm.
and that you were not able to stay there because you had to go and find a job to help the family. What was your first job?
My first job was working at Lampson Section. That was a business, it was a large business. They made bolts, nuts, rivets, and that kind of. I worked there one summer while school was out. And I went back to school. Well, they couldn't use me there because that was a job where men were working straight 8 hours, you know.
During the day.
So after I got back in school, I went to working at Alabama Packing. And what I would do, they would let me do, is come in the afternoon by 5:30, I believe it was, and I would clean up, up on the killing floor. And in the boning area, where they bone beef at, like that.
Right.
And on Saturdays, if they needed me, I'd go in on
You were
Saturdays.
still in school at that time.
I was still in school at that time.
And you worked there with that whole year. What grade did you leave school?
9th grade.
9th grade. Okay. So you then worked there for how long?
I suppose it was about a year.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you left there, where'd you go?
I just thought of something. After I come out of school, I worked there full time for several years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see.
And they went out of business. And when they went out of business, then I went to work at Alabama Byproduct in Tarrant. That's where I retired from.
And what did you do out there?
Well, when I first went to work there, I went to work in the oven department. And of course, that's where the oven's at, and where they cook the coke and load it out and all that kind of
Hot
stuff.
job.
Oh yeah. But I was pretty blessed. I didn't step on the battery too much up there in the ovens. I stayed on the yard, on the coke straight, where they load the cars and that kind of stuff. And I cleaned up on the belt line. Well, I had to work around the clock. Day, evening, night shift. And I worked that job, I suppose, about a year. That shift. Then I bidded in the labor department. And in the labor department, I was working on the track gate. See, I was so much business in loading railroad cars. That's how it was shipped at that time. the trucking industry wasn't like it is now. So we had several engines and crayons and all that kind of stuff. I think we had about 500 miles of railroad track laid out. So we repaired the rails and put in railroad ties and that kind of stuff. I worked that job for, I would say 5 years. And then I moved over on another job. It was still in the labor department, but it was more like cleaning up and digging ditches and whatever labor would do on the plant. But it wasn't on the railroad track. Well, I worked that job for about 10 years. And from there, I went in the mechanics department. And I was the first black in the mechanics department.
Did you ever have any difficulties doing your job with the people that you're working with?
Well, here again, I was blessed. I never had filed a grievance. And I never been disciplined by the foreman or threatened to get me to the office. My motto would tell a person, all right, I'll do it. I'll get to it, even if I wasn't gonna do it. If he come back, I'll just simply say, well, I hadn't had a chance to get to it. Being the first black to go on the job, I had to deal with a 50-50 situation. You had the whites. Those would express themselves by simply their looks or sometimes their short patience, with me being, as they call, a white man's job. Then you had a few blacks that without a fear, you gonna have problems and you gonna get killed and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. But I had a lot of faith, and I've always been a church fan. So I could deal with that.
Was this before or after the movement that you became the...
Well, this was before the movement.
Is that right?
That's a story there. Because I set myself up. I went in the mechanic department, and I had to do, I believe it was 3,000 hours or something like that, 2,000 something. Anyway, 2 years. And I would be eligible to get a setup from a mechanic helper or to mechanic. And of course, over a period of time, I got my setup. Then other blacks was drawn in the department. There had been times I wasn't too comfortable, but I would always have those fellows that I would be working with. See, we were paired up. That would kind of, stand back a little. But when we get by ourselves, then he was a regular guy, So I could understand.
You were paired up black and white?
No. I was on the back.
Oh, you were on the black. So you were
two men always
a pair.
Always a pair.
Okay.
So until we come to something major, and then the crew.
Right.
I started working that job, which was dangerous hours, but I was followed one night. I had one day, it was a split job. I had one day shift every week. Then 1 week I had 4 evenings. The next week I have 4 nights. Always my first shift on a Saturday the day. Then the rest of the week, 4 evenings or 4 nights. And I know how to get along. Whenever somebody wanted to swap out a shift, one of them, I'd always swap out. All this is for peace. And if someone wanted to swap out a whole week, well and good. So that worked out good.
So you got along with them by basically doing your job and whatever it took to get along with them. So
I was determined to get along. Being the police, I was determined to make it work without problems. And I didn't have too many problems.
right. Well, in your community, you also work with the Civic League.
Oh yeah, I worked with the Civic League, Democratic Council. There was two fellas that was role models for me. They just took me as their son. And Roy Hatchett and Robert Washington. And both of them was active in civic work and student men. And I just lined up with them. And
What was the activity that you were involved in with Civic League?
well, we were trying to make the best out of what we had and to do better. One of our projects was, at one point in time, and even is up to now, trying to get more blacks registered to vote. And so after I was able to pass with the help of Mr. Hatch and Mr. Washington, then I wanted to help somebody else. So I went to my pastor and I got permission from him to use the basement of the church.
Who was your pastor?
Fred Shunsworth. Anytime there was a club that was interested, and I was always soliciting, candidates, I would go. And I went to several community churches where I was invited in, and in homes. And I was really interested in that.
Well, you had become a registered voter yourself.
Oh yeah, I had become a voter then.
What was that process like?
Mean as it could be. They wanted to know what was the preamble to the Constitution, how many windows was in the county courthouse, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Did you pass the first time that you took?
Oh yeah, I passed the first time. I was smart. He wanted to know the preamble to the Constitution. And I started to repeat, and I pledged allegiance to the flag of the Constitution.
And they accepted that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Thompson. Yeah, I believe that was his name.
That was the name of the person that
Thompson. And I passed.
So then you went out to try to help other people prepare themselves to get registered to vote.
Yeah. I know one time we built a small bill. I guess about, what was it? Maybe 20 by 20. And it was a clinic. And we got Jefferson County to send a nurse out there once a week. The community did this. And we built a clinic, and once a week we had a nurse coming out. I think several times we got the doctor come out, or doctors come out. I'm trying to think who it was. It may have been Dr. Montgomery. I don't remember who it was.
So you were very active in your community, in developing the community and enhancing the community, as you're saying, trying to better the community at that point.
I was concerned.
And
it was the same in church.
Okay.
Yeah, I was concerned.
You were a member of Bethel Baptist Church. Bethel was sort of on the forefront of what happened in the movement. Were you a part of that initial thrust to develop the Alabama Christian movement?
I was.
In '56, when this was done, the NAACP had been outlawed from operating in the state.
That's
Had you
right.
been a member of the NAACP?
Oh yeah, I remember the NAACP.
Were there any incidences that took place that sort of stand out in your mind prior to the development of the Alabama Christian movement with the NAACP? I know you were very active in getting people registered to vote. Other activities that may have gone on in the community, organization, you attempted to organize people. Well,
Yeah, the NAACP was very active at that period. In fact, that is why the state, outlawed it.
that's right.
That's really why the state outlawed it. But it didn't help them none. No, it didn't help them none. At this period of time, we had begun to get more violent, should I say, in the community. And there was a lot of drinking and fellows gambling, and they wasn't too much trying to hide themselves. And we had quite a few murders, so Reverend Shuttlesworth got the idea of asking the police commissioner. We had the commissioner former governor at that time. Mr. Connor was the commissioner over it, to hire some black policemen so they could control the black communities. And they know a little bit more about us than the whites did, and the whites wasn't concerned. And control the parks and so on. Well, Mr. Connor wasn't interested in that. No.
Yeah. In fact, that was the first issue of the Alabama Christian movement.
That's it.
Trying to get policemen hired.
That's it. We had up on the pike. That was the main thoroughfare. We had I'm gonna call it a beer joint, cafe there, and it wasn't nothing that happened that fellas get fighting up there several times. Guys got hit by a train coming across the crossing there. And really, that was the heart of Collegeville, the pike, so to speak. And this is really what just spurred this on, We had to do something.
What do you remember about the first meeting? Did you attend the first meeting of the Alabama Christian movement?
As I remember, I may be off a little bit. Reverend Shuttlesworth called, he and I were pretty close. He called a group of community pastors together. I believe it was on a Saturday night at Belford. And he discussed the problems and the pro and the con. And I think out of this strategy meeting, I believe they had another meeting. Seemed like to me it was at the motel, I believe it was. Well, anyway, from that meeting, the first organizational meeting was held at SARS up on Indian Ridge.
What do you remember about that first meeting?
Well, I believe it was a Methodist pastor. I don't remember his name. There was a controversy over who was going to be leading. And, of course, that didn't get anywhere. Now, Bethel, so to speak, was the headquarters. Because if there was ever a problem on a place to meet, and normally we had a lot of places to meet, to go around. The idea was to go from community to community.
Right.
And but there was ever if they ever needed a place to meet, they would always come together.
The controversy over leadership, how did that play out?
If I can remember well,
Was this a challenge to the leadership of Fred Shuttlesworth?
I believe it was. I believe it was. I don't remember too well, but I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. So those first meetings, and you attended a lot of the mass meetings. So
Mm-hmm.
what was it like attending a mass meeting? What was the mass meeting like?
Heavenly. Heavenly. It was, you had something to look forward to. I suppose that the purpose was one day things will be better than what they is, and this is the goal, and this is what we're reaching for, and it was just enthusiastic to the person that really wanted to do that. And at that time, we was having a large crowd. You had to go early to get a seat.
Is that right?
Because I always, be outside the church where I could look around a little bit. I wasn't worried about the seat.
You were one of the guards, right?
Oh yeah, I got it.
How did that whole structure evolve? See, you actually guarded, according to what Mrs. Andrews gave me, you guarded.
It was a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe now, let me see, what is this guy's name? I can't call it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I got it twice a week. I believe it was on a Sunday night. And by the way, I had two women guarding with me.
You guarded with two women?
Mm-hmm. Miss Minnie Eden and I wasn't the only man now.
Mm-hmm.
And Dusty Brooks.
Mm-hmm. They
were some faithful women. In fact, I believe it was Minnie Eden probably saved the building one night. We had a fellow to come up to attract our attention away from what was supposed to happen around on the north side of the building.
Was this a black guy?
A black guy. See, he just come up and started down between the buildings. And we stopped him. And Ms. Eden was sitting upstairs looking out of the window.
Where is this now? Is this at?
That's at Bethel.
Okay.
Looking out of the window. And this car pulled around to the side and stopped, and this man made an attempt to get out. She said it would look like a bucket. And she started to holler. He jumped in the car, took off.
Now, was this a black man or white man?
No, she said it was a white man. And when we got around there, he had about 3 blocks to go up to 27th Avenue. That's where I lived, on 27th Avenue. And he had his brake lights on for the make it to. And that fellow we had around there with us, this black guy, he went to, and some of the guys want to do something to him, but we turned him loose, and he went on back to bed. We didn't never see him anymore.
He didn't live in the community.
I know, I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
See, when it comes to the law, we was on our own.
Mm-hmm.
There was no police called no way. They was one of the problems.
Mm-hmm. That was part of the problem.
They're actually part of the problem. They'll come there shaking the doors, wanting to get in there to run us away from there. They'll intimidated the men leaving there. See, the shift would always change at midnight. And you just well had that problem. But the law brought us through it.
Were you armed? Yeah. And did every night there were different people that actually stood watch for the house or the church or whatever? Did you ever have?
When we had enough men to keep from walking to be in danger, now they ain't got no eyes.
Mm-hmm.
We had a shack built across the street after the parsonage was bombed. Well, they just blowed it up. That's America. Mm-hmm. We built a brick home across the street for parsonage. And we put a little shack over there for whoever the guard was. They could stay over there because the alley to the shack was really on the L&M railroad track. But someone could come down the track, come up in the dark, you know. And whenever we had enough men, we had somebody over there, plus the fellows there at the church. So we had enough all the time. Sometimes we run a little short, but we could always manage.
Did you ever have the occasion to use any of the firearms that you may have had?
I don't remember offhand a firearm being discharged, not one time. There has been time we probably could have or should have, like the case that I just told you about. But I don't remember.
Were there any other situations like that where whites would come into the community and you would see them and they would be mysteriously hanging around the church or the parsonage?
That's, oh sure. You had paper men riding by. They said paper men. See, one time we had, I think we stopped the paper man from throwing papers early in the morning. White paper man. See, you didn't know what he was throwing out. Oh yeah, you had them riding by looking, driving slow and trying to intimidate you. Yeah. They never give up.
Did you participate in any demonstrations?
I was working, you know. So my greatest anticipation was there at the church and attending the mass meetings, you know. From time to time, Fred had to go off somewhere. And he stood out like a sore thing. His car, his wife, all the children. And if he needed me to carry somewhere, or she wanted to go somewhere, you know.
So you were always available when...
I tried to make myself available. Now really I wasn't scared, but I was just, you know, cautious.
Right.
Because I've been personally intimidated. I left around there one evening, and I wasn't on guard that evening. I think I went around there to quiet person. Left by 9 o'clock. Police followed me. They was waiting on another corner to pick me up, and they followed me. But I didn't want to carry them home with me. So what I did was, a block before I got to the house, I turned on 27th Court. So I lived on 27th Avenue. So you had 27th Avenue, that was the main road, going to Vanderbilt. You had 27th Court, and you had 28th Avenue, then 29th Avenue. And I turned there on 27th Court. And just as I turned and got down about half a block, you had 1 or 2 vacant houses sealed, and they pulled me over. Want to know where I was going and where I've been and all that kind of stuff. So I just left Bethel Church. Well, where you going? I'm going home. Well, it's good. They didn't ask me where I was going because they couldn't do that. I didn't have to be going straight home, no way. Because if I told them where I lived at the next block, the second house from the corner. So they stood there and mumbled a few minutes and they went on back to bed. And I went home.
So they didn't do anything?
No.
At that time. Well, when you, as you stood guard, and you usually had 2, was it always the 2 women that stood?
Yeah, they would usually be there. They would usually be there.
So they were pretty sturdy people to come out.
Yeah.
Were there other women that were involved as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't know the name though.
But there were other women.
there were other ones.
So it was both men and women involved.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guard any other place other than the church and the...
Well, several times I went over to Mr. Cho's house. And we'd be out there in the garage. See them some dog days back there.
So you have quite a bit of experience in that regard.
Yeah.
In that time. And that really sort of becomes a very necessary part of the movement. having the eyes open for people that would come out, because there were instances that people were in fact come out to shoot or throw bombs or whatever.
Very much so. Yeah, we had to support our leader. I tell you something else. During those days, police would come out and record the services. They would have radios on, and they'd have a car sometimes parked out in front of the church, sometimes down the street, about a half a block from the church, and you could hear everything going on in the church and the police stuff.
Tough times.
Yeah, tough time.
Do you remember any incidences during the, say, going back and forth from the meetings? Were you ever stopped as a result of your participating?
That was the only time that I was ever stopped going home. Now, I passed policemen constantly leaving the church. They'd be parked down on the other end of the block. They wanted to make their presence known with their intimidation.
Right.
So you would always hear police somewhere until something happened. Now, when something happened, you couldn't find it.
Now, did your employer, did he give you guys any instructions as to whether you should be involved in the movement, whether you would be fired if you were caught involved?
The master mechanic on my job told me to be careful. What happened was, when Reverend Shuttlesworth, I believe it was, made his first visit down to talk to the police commissioner, and he went and talked to him. We got a petition. To get the citizens to sign it. We'll use that for some pressure. That's a pressure point. So, for some reason, I got a petition and carried it to Wood. I said, now, if I can get some white folk name on here, and then somebody that is known, it would have some weight. I carried it on my job, and I asked the superintendent. Not then I asked the master mechanic. He told me, he said, well, I tell you what. Said, you niggas need some nigga polices. Said y'all can help each other. Y'all know how to handle each other. Said you take it up there in the office, and if Howard signed it, I'll sign it.
Who was Howard?
He was the plant manager. I carried it up in the office. And I told him what we was trying to do. He said, I think it's a good idea. I really do. He said, I tell you what you do. He said, go down there and tell Mr. Owen to sign it, and if he signed it, I'll sign it. I said, well, Mr. Owen told me to come up here and see you. He said, did he? I said, yeah. He said, will you stop back by here this evening and let me think about it? And when I got off from work, I went in his office. And his secretary handed me the sheet of paper, and he had his name on it. And I went on around to this other fellow's office, and he signed it. Then I got just about every white man out at the plant that was in position. I'm not talking about labels. And I got that sheet and brought it back to black fellow signed it, and over a period of time, whenever he did do it, Shuttlesworth, that's my brother, pastor. He presented it to the city, because it took a little bit more than that to deal with Mr. Bull Company.
But you did get.
Oh yeah. So after the action got started, after the first bomb was sold and all this kind of stuff, then every white out there at the plant know that I was involved.
Mm-hmm.
So the master mechanic told me, be careful. Herman, how y'all doing?
It never threatened you.
Oh, no, I was never.
Were there any other workers out there involved? But you're the only black in mechanics area, though, right?
At that particular time? Yeah.
Okay.
At that particular, I worked that job just about 2 years before another black bid it in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sit in, see.
Right.
Mm-hmm. About 2 years.
Yeah. So you were sort of on the forefront, the beginning of what was happening.
Yeah, I set myself up. See, I had no way of knowing all this was going to come forth.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you were also a member of the union.
Yes, yeah.
Were there ever any union activities going on that related to
Segregation?
Yes, sir.
We used to doing getting different contract time. The company would give a raise on percentage of what you made. And our plant manager, he stopped that. The union was requesting because the white man would get the most money.
Is that right?
That's right. In fact, that's what I was told. Yeah, we were getting percentage raise. So he started giving them a flat raise. That didn't bring us up to them, but it kept us on a standstill with them where we was at.
Yeah, you keep them at that level of level.
Mm-hmm. But we didn't drop no further by getting a percentage raise.
Right. Okay. So would that have the union then, was that an initiative of the union?
Yeah.
So the union was helpful, in other words, in that regard.
Not helpful to us now.
Mm-hmm.
The company was.
Mm-hmm.
This
Okay.
particular man was. Because he stopped that, giving raises like that.
Okay. Well, what impact did the union have then?
Well, the impact the union had was they was getting the most money for the highest paid vote.
For the whites.
For the whites.
So the union never really worked in favor of blacks at that time.
No, it wasn't. See, you got to remember, this was white man's business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the union is white man's job.
Yeah.
You stay in your place and wherever that's supposed to
And
be.
the union goes along with that.
Yeah.
At what point does that start to change, or did it change?
Well, this was part of the change.
Mm-hmm.
This was part of the change. Yeah, I believe it was in the 60s.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's part of the change.
Well, if
I think that as we start to moving forward, or trying to move forward, then that other fellow that had some fairness in it, then he tried to elevate, you know, and I think that,
trying to be fair.
yeah.
Couldn't do it all at once.
Mm-mm. No.
Gradually. Mm-hmm. How long did you work out there?
41 years, 3 months.
41 years. And how long have you been retired?
In May, it'll be 7 years.
Right.
Enjoy every minute of it.
Every minute.
Hadn't been back out there.
Is that right?
Not in the plant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you obviously had a rather eventful life in terms of...
Well, it was educational too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you had to do all over again, what would you change?
What would I change? Oh, Lord. What would I change? Well, there are probably some jobs that I once did I wouldn't do.
Mm.
But I'm happy. I'm happy.
Mm.
And I got fair health. And I worked all my life.
Mm.
Never shined shoes. Never went to the barber shop. Never threw papers. Had a man's job all my life.
all your life. And so now you can look back and say where you come from and where you have been.
With the exception of little arthritis and high blood pressure, I'm all right.
Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come and talk with me.
I appreciate it.
And it's been very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.